So, what's the theme that we want to talk about?
You're asking me, but you're the one who decided on this one.
Oh, yeah, right.
What's up?
So yesterday and the day before, I had a bit of like my throwback into the party mode. So I went to two student parties, and I like these parties just to observe people, how they act, and being a bit social, walking around. It's more like a festival. It's not like going into a club or so. It's just like students are coming together. There are live bands. There are you get some beer, and yeah. And in the meantime, I was also thinking about the podcast, of course, and I had this idea to do something about the crisis of masculinity, which is like, oh. So I think that I had some conversations, and I think it's like a common theme, but it just interests me because here it's like an engineering town, like, and some girls also before we got together, they were always complaining that guys wouldn't like respect them, especially because here they are not like it's the ratio between men and women isn't that like equal, so it's disproportionately distorted actually. So I think here everything comes much more when you talk about this crisis of masculinity here, you can see it much better than in most of the cities where it's different, because it's always like the extremes that interest me. So I think in an engineering town here.
What makes it an engineering town?
Sorry?
What makes it an engineering town?
I think it's from university. Like, oh, what do you mean by what's?
Because nobody knows Aachen, so.
Yeah, it's an engineering town where the most students are in engineering, and so that is a subject that, believe it or not, many women are not so interested in. Oh, what is your take on it? Like, is it because or were you ever considering to study engineering or to become an engineer? Or
no, I wasn't considering it
because you studied psychology before.
Yeah,
you studied in psychology, and then
because to get into engineering, you have to have taken a certain level of physics in high school, and I only took the minimum requirement for physics, which wasn't enough. Like, I took the minimum requirements to finish high school for physics, but I focused mostly on chemistry and biology instead.
How's the Canadian system? Maybe also audience from here, you can explain how is that different to the American or to the German system?
I don't know how it compares to the other systems. I'll just tell you how it works with our university. Basically, once you enter high school, you kind of have to start thinking about what you want to study, more or less, or if you want to study when you're finished. So if you wanted to go into medicine, you had to take all sciences. And I think you also already have to start considering like volunteer work and stuff like that.
Ah, that is a part, because here
it's a huge part of it.
Yeah, okay. What is volunteer work in the Northern American system?
I'm trying to think. Well, like, I have a friend who's now a doctor, and he the thing is, like, his family is like a medicine family, so he was volunteering at his like dad's clinic and stuff. And he was working at like the science museum in the city, and he did other stuff as well. He was very active in terms of like you know how you would have those kind of like leadership roles in high school to like help the new kids, for example.
Yeah, like a tutor or...
Yeah, like a mentor.
A mentor program.
Yeah, so he would do stuff like that. And, volunteer work is something that's very valued when it comes to medicine school admissions and stuff. Because they want really well-rounded people who are, that want to benefit other people. So when you have volunteer work, that looks really good on your application.
But for medicine, does it have to be
There
like
is a spider on the microphone.
a spider on the microphone? I'm a bit like
I'll just let him.
spider phobic. So
Are
just
you
like,
really?
Yeah, I am.
He's a small one.
You have to. Okay. But you're not, right?
I'm not.
Okay. The small spiders are okay.
I'll let him.
I can't touch it.
You can leave.
I lead his way out of the socket that's covering the microphone.
Yeah, I don't have a proper. He's tiny though.
There we go.
But then he's just gonna.
Come on, mate.
But now he's on the
It's
couch.
free.
Here, can you bring him
You're
outside?
free.
No,
No,
but put him
you're
outside.
free.
Put him outside. Don't just put him on the ground. Just okay. Don't drop him though. Make sure you. Okay. You did that really quickly. He didn't fall on the floor?
Nope.
Okay.
That was a spider moment, spider crisis.
All right, going back.
So the medical work is to be done also in the field, or is it general like volunteering or community work?
No, you. What do you mean?
When you want to study medicine, you are supposed to be a well-rounded person, which is really cool because here the system is just based on grades. That's why a lot of people are complaining. It's like when you leave high school, that's the only thing that matters. So a lot of people that I know, they had to be in line. They had to wait, or they had to do something else before they can study. Because the only thing is, you have to get in like A plus, or we have it 1.0 or so, and then you can study medicine or psychology. So
Okay, yeah. For here, like in Canada, you had to be like one of the top students as well as you have to do volunteer work.
Mm-hmm.
So you do have to have very good grades to get into medicine school as well.
But that's still not the only thing that counts.
No, so you have to be like a well-rounded person, very smart, very concerned about the community.
Do you have
things
to
like
go
that.
through like an interview process,
Yeah.
or? Okay. That's a cool concept. They're trying to change it here, but I don't know how long it takes because they keep talking about it and they keep trying to change the system, but so far nothing changed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my first idea, or my first question was why you didn't consider engineering, or why, like, because I always ask like why do so many people study engineering, whereas like most girls are maybe more into medicine, psychology, or natural sciences.
I don't know. It just never was one of those things where, like, I know that I was good at math and stuff, but for me at the time in high school, like, I was very interested in like people, and I don't know. I felt that psychology was also always something that was interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like computing science became something that I kind of tacked on because my dad said I might be good at it, but it wasn't really something that I was anticipating like pursuing. But yeah, in terms of engineering, it's gotten better over the years. I think nowadays it's a lot closer to 50-50, I think, at my old university.
Oh, really? Okay.
I don't know for sure what the status is at the moment. I haven't looked at numbers, but I'm pretty sure that they're trying to get it into like a 50-50 split. And it's gotten a lot better over the years. But for whatever reason, I think it still is very male dominated. I'm not totally sure. In Aachen, it's quite different.
Yeah, so here it's a stereotypical engineering town, and I think that it just change or shapes your behavior, and that it is maybe something where I don't know, like when you go out here, what I notice is that there is a bit of maybe because there are not so many girls here, or maybe it's also because there's so much pressure also in the studies that it seems like when I went to this festival or student festival, that they're all like freaking out and being like super hammered, and then I had the conversation like some girl, she told me that she really didn't like it because they were like trying to touch her or something like
Oh,
that.
really?
Yeah. And then she said that she wouldn't go to these parties anymore. So
Yeah, no kidding.
yeah,
Disgusting.
yeah. I think this is, but that I just wonder why. Like, is there a connection between like this ratio, or is it from the studies? Because I feel that whenever you go to, like, there are of course like classes of guys, and then there is a bit of like aggression sometimes. Like you can just like feel it, and then I don't know, like, yeah. What's your idea? Or like you actually never really like to go to these places anyways, right? To
No.
like festivals, masses of people, or
No, I was never interested in those things. So, yeah, I don't know, because I eventually moved over to computing science, and I was often, like, I think I had one class where I was the only girl. In most cases, it would be mostly guys in the class. But also, I find that people in computing science are also very introverted, so nobody's very
yeah.
aggressive or anything. So I never really had that problem. Everybody just minded their own business. I don't know. I feel like maybe you have a better insight into this, because this is just like not my, I don't know, realm.
Yeah, but I think it's a very interesting question still, because what may like I'm always trying to put myself into the position of girls when they tell me something like that. So I'm like, okay, why do guys behave in that way? Is that, and trying to go back to this question, like with the masculinity, I feel that we had a lot of talk about this, and
Why do
we-
why do men feel that they need to be with another woman?
yeah, that's a good question. I think it's what. So from this discussion, and also before, I would say that most guys, they are just depending on the feedback, or whatever, however you call it, that women have, because maybe now they are a bit disturbed by the fact that many women are so like more free than ever before, and then they depend very much on the women, and they want to get the how do you say, like the confirmation, like they define themselves through their woman, through their girlfriend more than the other way around. And I think that the first thing that you have to do as a man would be to find yourself, like to be settled, because I think men at a certain age, they are very insecure because they don't get so much of this confirmation, but I think the majority needs to define themselves differently. That's what I mean with this crisis of masculinity. And also I read a bit about this concept, because a lot of people think that it is just a thing that's going on, because there's no true like role model. You don't know how to behave as a guy, and there is no clear standard anymore. I think that might be a thing. And so maybe it's good to find yourself by finding something that you are genuinely interested in, or I always liked reading, because reading is so like you have to do it. You have to be on good terms with yourself when you read a book, and then you gotta be you are putting yourself into the shoes of another person, and then you learn a lot from reading. I think for guys that would be a very good thing to start with.
Start with reading what?
I don't know. I think in general, so for literature, for instance, most readers are women. Like I read that it's like the ratio is like 70-30. So more women read than guys. But I always think that literature is a good way to discover yourself. It's a very powerful technique, and it always was throughout the history. And for instance, I grew up reading Hemingway, which is a good example of this masculinity stuff, because in the Hemingway novel there's a guy and he's like going on big hunts, or he's fishing, or he's also like walking around boozing. They're all a bit of lost, but there you can clearly see how the image of a guy changes over time, I think, because in the Hemingway novel he's already like struggling, but he's still allowed to do this stuff. But then when you look at other like contemporary writers, there's no clear image anymore, and I think that this might disturb some of the guys, because look at rap or so, there is a clear image, like you have to be this macho guy, you have to have all the goods. I mean, it's very over the top, like this rap example. But then on the other side, there's like this hypersensitive guy who has to who has to be very communicative, very open. So between these two extremes, there is no standard anymore.
Mm-hmm. What do you think like masculinity today should be?
Yeah, I think it should be in the between those two. I think it's definitely not good to be this like Hemingway character who's just like boozing and trying to pick up girls, or going on big hunts and stuff like that, or when you read Fiesta about like bullfights, and it's really fascinating to read Hemingway still. But looking at it from our perspective, it's just like, yeah, okay, some parts is maybe like over the top, or it's a bit outdated now. And then there is this new like hypersensitive guy who's taking care of himself, like also like very much into like also his physical looks matters, and I think it should be between those two. But my main point was to first discover yourself through, I don't know, like finding a good, not hobby, but finding something that where you can define yourself better than just, just maybe also through traveling or something like that. That you really define yourself by stuff that you learn more, you discover your own needs and stuff like that. How was your, like, how would you, or how do you see it in terms of your family, for instance, like
what masculinity is?
Yeah, like are there different concepts, or do you see a change in the generations, or
Yeah, I'm trying to think, because I know that like when we were growing up, there were like we did tend to tease our brothers quite a bit about, for example, like if they were too skinny, we would like tease them about that, and we didn't realize until later how damaging those kinds of jokes are. And I don't know. I guess like things like whether you're playing video games too much was considered being just like lazy and not being, not growing up. I know, huh?
But was there a clear image how a guy or a man should be? Or something that you would say, okay, this is not masculine enough, or something like that?
Not really. I don't think so. What about you? Like, do you feel that there was a definition of what masculinity was?
When I think about my father, who passed away already, but he was born amidst the war. Like, he was born in 1941, so he was just like this post-World War generation, growing up under poverty and immense struggles, and then some like family stuff. But I think that this generation was just very calm and very, like, they wouldn't talk about their feelings. Mm-hmm. They would always be never opening up about like stuff, because maybe because they've been through so much suffering and that they cannot relate. But I think also that there was, because I didn't get to know my grandfather, but maybe there was a tendency to be like very like strict and yeah, and then the roles were just clearly there. Like he was never like helping doing like shopping or I think he never cooked like one meal in his life or so. But I think it's just, yeah, it's just how it was. But for me it's very interesting because I still like I grew up with how it was, because he was fairly old as a father, so that's just nowadays I think different. Just, but it worked out pretty, like it worked out for my parents, but I just saw that it's just a different idea how a man has to be, never talking, like he was so hard, like never talking about pain or something, like he was just like not, also never going to the doctor, for instance, like and then yeah, there's stuff that where I think maybe he could have gone to the doctor and could have been better for his health, because then yeah, he got a disease, maybe it could have been prevented. So I don't know. I think it's very good to be more open about like your body, also taking more. I think also guys were not taking, or older people, they were not taking care of their body anymore. Like they were also, a lot of stuff was from drinking and smoking. That everything changed afterwards, and I think it's a good thing.
Do you ever like look back at how your father raised you, or how, I don't know, your father was raised, and think, okay, do you find that the decisions that you make are in response to however you were brought up, or any, like, do you ever make a conscious decision, like, I'm doing this because I want to be like my father, or don't want to be like my father, things like that?
Yeah, sure. I think.
Or is it more something that's it just happens that way?
Yeah, between guys, like father-son is special, I would say, because we had this a bit of like talk about mythology where all like the gods are always revolting against the father generation. I think that is a common theme in mythology, Greek mythology, Indian mythology. They all have this revolting of the one generation against the other generation, the younger generation against the old generation, because they have to clear the table. Even though, I don't know, it's just like a thing like between father and son that has to, that there's more tension, I think. Whereas like, of course, between son and mother, there's more like more of a connection. But my father was not really stereotypically male. That's where I'm also, I would say.
What does that mean?
He was very much into, I would like reading, literature. He was a storyteller. He could make up stories. Like I remember we were walking or like going on hikes in Bavaria, and then he would just like keep telling stories for like hours, like 4 or 5 hours. Like me and my brother, we were like fighting, for instance, and then in response to that, he would just tell us a story about, and the story contained something about why we fight and why, like a lesson or something like. That we are not supposed to fight. So like, yeah, he was very into like storytelling, very mild person, I would say, never screaming or being aggressive. So that I think in response try to be a bit more like tougher, maybe as a contra thing, like for instance doing all the sports and getting getting muscular and being shredded and stuff like that. So maybe that could be a response. That's the first thing that comes into my mind, because my father, I was also often like nagging him a bit or teasing him, because he would just not respond to it. He would just like ignore me, probably.
Oh. Yeah, for me, like I'm still trying to like think back on my family and being like, okay, is there a definition of what's considered masculinity? And for me, it's difficult because, Like, I think the only thing I can really think of is just that my brothers were the ones who were helping my dad build something for the most part. But I would also help if I wanted to. And then, or like if my mom buys groceries, then they help her bring the groceries in. But I don't feel like we had this expectation about what you have to do to become a man, because you have people like you have, I don't know, like one of my brothers likes to work out, and then the other one doesn't like working out, but we never said, okay, if you want to be a man, you have to work out, things like that.
Yeah, that's the common theme, I would say. Like one guy, like for instance, I would say I'm more like the sport guy. My brother is less so. So you're trying to find your niche in your family. So my father was the storyteller, and always just keep remembering what he was like telling about, like ancient civilizations, or finding like it was always like finding a treasure or something like exciting, like going to other planets, like that's why he had this like sci-fi proclivity, and reading all these magazines that like Geo or what is it, National Geographic, where they're like exciting stories about like discoveries in natural sciences. So yeah, I think that this is what you would consider as like an adventurer. I think he was always like traveling, and but there's stuff that you would consider masculine and other stuff not, but I think you are always trying to define yourself through your parents in a way, like if you are against them or in favor of them, right? So
yeah, I feel like nowadays like the term masculine is very like, it seems like a term you can even just like get rid of, and just more of like trying to define what makes a good person, what makes a healthy person. Because things like who reads and who works out, like that's just like something that either men or women can do. So I feel like when it comes to, I don't know, defining like masculinity is really difficult for me nowadays, because it's just like,
that's what I mean, like there are so many different concepts now, and where for instance, look at Mad Men, where they are all like in the 60s, they were all, it's already changing the perception or this image, but they are still in this realm of guys need to be working and nourishing the family, but then they're having all these affairs on the side and whatever, and they're drinking and doing. So that really changed a lot. And then like with emancipation, women could have more power about their bodies, and it's probably like the biggest change of one of the biggest changes of history, I would say. But in other cultures, it's still, if you don't look at the Western culture, at least, it's still very different. Like I know Russia, for instance, has a very, I mean, it's even going more masculine right now. Look at Putin and how he presents himself. I think he does it just because he wants to appeal to the people, I think. Or look at, I think a lot of countries like Brazil or India, they've got this different image now, and by looking even at the presidents that represent their countries. Or do you remember, or do you know anything about like the Philippines, like Duterte?
Duterte,
yeah. How he is supposed to be like the strong man who's doing all this against drug trafficking or something like that.
Yeah, like
how is he seen? Even like I don't know much about it.
I think in the Philippines, I feel like there are a lot more people who are in support of him than like you have people outside.
Okay.
Because he is dealing with a problem that is like, he's dealing with like a huge problem in the Philippines, which has to do with gangs and
gang violence.
Yeah, and I think people feel safer when if he's taking such dramatic measures to eliminate this. I do sometimes watch videos from this channel called Asian Boss, I believe, and they ask people in the streets in different countries in Asia about certain topics. So I know I was watching one about what locals think of Duterte, and they do acknowledge that he does take extreme measures just by kind of this sort of rampage tactic of trying to eliminate gangs. But at the same time, they also feel like it's such a big problem that they're okay with it. So I think when a country is going through hard times, they really look for a leader who has this sort of ruthlessness and really this physical sense of power. So I think maybe that's why Russia wants a very strong, stoic kind of
that face. Like
rides bears or whatever, shirtless and like.
It's like Hemingway.
Yeah, it's kind of like I think when there is so much chaos going on in a country, they really look for some sort of something that's strong and won't be swayed by other emotions. So
probably like when like during stormy times you need something to protect you against the wind, the headwinds, or
so I guess that's why like some countries like really value this very macho kind of figure, whereas maybe countries that are a little bit more like, of course all countries have their own problems, but if they're less extreme, having a more emotional and sensitive leader is something that they actually prefer, because maybe that's when they're at a point where they can focus on the more human parts of like the more human problems rather than
I mean, first comes food, and you have to have security that's what you expect from a state, is mainly that the state protects you. And if the state can't do it, then a guy comes in place who says he can do it. And whether he can or not, maybe even like the rhetorics or that make people already like feel something is changing can lead to a shift or something like that.
Mm-hmm. What is your opinion on this whole need for a father figure? Do you think people need a father figure, or is this, I don't know. The reason I ask this is because I'm not really sure what people mean by needing a father figure. Because what if you're raised by mothers? What does that mean? Do you lack something that people who were raised, who had a father?
That is hard to answer, because I was raised by a father who was, like I said, he was very, in some ways he was contradicting this typical male image, because he was like inventing stories, like dreaming of different civilizations and stuff like that. So a bit like more aloof, dreamy person, which is not like the down-to-earth guy. For me, he was always more like a visionary. He was constantly producing ideas and concepts and telling and working with material that he finds. But so he was, in a way, he was maybe my role model. But then there was still this need to overcome it, like to be a bit different. Like, you don't want to be like the exact copy of your father, right? But I think that a lot of people now, they don't have a strong father figure, because like their divorce rates are very high, and then they live apart. And then, I think you still need, as like growing up or going through puberty, you need a good father. Like if he's not there physically, I think I would have been very much more confused without having this father figure that I was growing up with. So I think that one of the crises of this Western society maybe is connected to this loss of like yeah, like but also like fathers are not taking care of their children so much. I mean, they do their careers or they're looking for money, but I think it's maybe also because both parents work now and it's hard to get everything together. But I would definitely say that it's super important to have one father who is there. If he doesn't have so much time, then it should be a quality time that he's taking care of the offspring.
Yeah, but going back to my question, like, what does it have to say about people who are raised by lesbian couples or people who were not raised, whose fathers weren't around?
The thing is, I don't know anybody, so I don't know if they were affected by it. I don't know. I really don't know. But I can imagine that even if it's a lesbian couple, then probably one of them would be more like the strong or like a father figure. Isn't it like where also like actually it's probably not that different because one is more like the stronger in the part. I mean, it's in all partnerships. One is like a bit stronger, and the other is a bit more like the feminine part. And maybe that I don't know. I can imagine it wouldn't change so much. But would they lack? Yeah. This concept of masculinity is very hard to like we're struggling to find even like a base definition what a father should be or a guy should be right now.
So like say like you had a son, what steps would you take to like when raising your child? What are some important things that you want to teach them?
Maybe like I said, like my father was very dreamy, but I think that for instance, he didn't like clubs, and it's very important to be like part of like a soccer club or soccer team. So I would try to make sure that that they are integrated more into like the community. I think that is a part that a father should also try to push a bit more. So like because there is a way in where you become nowadays competitive by like going to sports clubs and stuff like that. So I think that would be an element for like educating your child.
But what if your son doesn't like sports?
Yeah, you could like something like music, sports, or just a hobby or something that he feels comfortable in. It doesn't have to be sports.
But how's that different from a mother doing it?
No, it's really not different from mother. Like, but you asked me what I would do.
Yeah, I guess
I don't know.
No. I'm just wondering because like I'm trying to figure out like whether this father figure is like needed or if you just need parents. Like, what's the difference between a father and a parent in terms of responsibilities? What is a father supposed to do for his child versus any parent, male, female, for that child? What differences do they offer?
Probably it's is there a male perspective? Is there maybe not? Yeah.
Because I think in this day and age, at least in the Western world, I feel like it's become that line is like, for me, I don't really see any difference.
Yeah, okay, yeah. The traditional roles are gone anyways. That's true. But I think I cannot really talk about it because I grew up having this more traditional way still. But I wouldn't say I have had any disadvantages by that. But it's but I just don't know how it is. But you also like your father was away and working and your mom was mainly at home, right? So we both have no experience how it could be different. So or do you know any people or any like survey how that if what you said if how it would have been differently?
Mm, well, like, yeah, I come from a background where a lot of people had both parents because I grew up in a privileged society. So there are, like, I do have friends whose parents have divorced and such. But for the most part, if I'm being honest, they were all, they came from heterosexual couples who are still together.
Mm.
So, yeah, I also can't give a really full full opinion, but I'm just saying, like, from my own experience, like, I feel like sure, my dad did, like, he like was more or less the breadwinner of our family, but also when they came to Canada, it was really whoever got the job first would be the breadwinner. When they came to Canada, neither of them had a job lined up, so they were both just on the hunt to find something, and my dad was the first one to get a job. But if my mom had found a job first,
Because he is an engineer.
His engineering degree is invalid in Canada.
Oh, right. Yeah, right.
So they started at the same level.
Mm.
So, yeah, if my mom had found a job first, then she would have been the breadwinner of our family.
Yeah, this is like the concept where also I have no, like, probably that's a modern concept. Like, when both are academic or have an academic degree, you would have to figure out, like, who gets the better job or who, like. But I think both working together, it's really hard. Like, both trying to get into, like, the career level, that's super hard. Or what do you think about that?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's something we also have to figure out too.
Yeah. Like, both full-time working and being there for children probably is really difficult.
Yeah. Now we're both trying to see who's gonna not work.
Yeah, but like there are the new models also here where you can work. You can work from home, maybe even as a program you can work from home, or you can work just like part time or stuff like that. If you have kids, I think this, like, the complexity of the world is so big that both working full time is hard to handle probably. I mean, even with school, like, I work till 6 or so. So how would that, like, work out? Like, if we are both working till 6, we come home at 7. Like, what do the kid, like, it's just not working. It's just like incredibly, like, dumb system. Like, how would that even work? How? And then it's the question that I ask myself: if you have this system, like, why don't politicians see that, like, people with academic backgrounds are not, like, getting so many kids anymore? Because they have no security. Like, the contracts are limited on a certain, like, time period. There's so much insecurity in the game right now, and of course, like, we get older, but then you are thinking about, like, having kids and when to do it. But yeah, what, like, how to get everything together, right? That's
yeah. Because also one of my fears is like, I studied for this long only to, like, not use it.
Yeah.
Once you start having kids and stuff. But that's.
I guess the what I heard, like, in Scandinavia, for instance, here the father figure is, I think they can stay at home for a pretty long time. I don't know how long exactly, but I have the feeling that they have better models than here. Because the Scandinavians, they have this strong sense of community, probably more than here in Germany, and they are trying to do everything that you stay, like, be part of the community still. Maybe I don't know how it's in Canada. Like, do you get, like...
I don't remember how much. Okay, so my sister just had a baby a couple of months ago, and I believe she's on parental leave for a year, and I don't know how much her husband gets. I want to say, actually, no, she told me, but I forget completely. So
Okay.
I don't know. But today, did you want to focus more on fathers, or do you want to focus on like men in Aachen and trying to find love?
Yeah, actually, we started like, if we connect the dots here, we started with Aachen, and then I heard like some girls were complaining with the engineering, and then we had a bit of like, what is a father figure? I was telling a bit of my dad how he was special to me, like giving some special examples, then trying to work through like different countries with Russia, India, and then you mentioned Canada, and also bringing up some questions about different like ideas about like gender, if there's lesbian couples and how it is there. So I think that, yeah, we kind of talked about this crisis of masculinity through different lenses here, right? Like bypassing it a bit, but still like, yeah, I think we don't have to do like how would you answer? Is there a crisis of masculinity? I think, yeah, there is a bit of a crisis, but maybe it's also because here there's so much prosperity. That's now when we recap the talk, like in other countries there's more insecurity, even in the US right now, but if you still have like a social security system like here, maybe then Western Europe isn't like the worst place still, because you can play with different like ideas or roles or identities, even though it's also for us going to be hard in the future, probably because you don't know when you have kids and how to get everything together, right? So yeah, father figure needed. What's your take on it?
I think in terms of like a father, like a male figure, I don't know. I don't think it's really that important. I think you just need somebody who's
there, right?
Who's there.
Yeah.
And I think the only reason why you'd need like a male is to talk about like puberty, but that's also something that a woman can do too. So I feel like, yeah, gender norms and expectations society puts on everybody is just kind of unnecessary.
Okay.
But maybe this is just me being like ultra liberal, ultra left or something.
Yeah, ultra left.
But I'm
glad we haven't mentioned Jordan Peterson.
You know, like no, like I think just like in terms of like gender expectations, I feel like a whole bunch of it is just garbage. Like why should boys be expected to be a certain way, and why should girls be expected to be a certain way?
Yeah, that's true. But I still think that I read a very interesting study lately that was on more this like natural selection, like how do men and women get together. And they did a huge study from, I don't know, like Journal of Psychology or something, and they had the findings that in cross culture, like in all cultures, actually men and women, whether it was in Russia, in Iran, which is like super ultra religious and still, or Western society, like men are still looking for girls, more judging for appearance, and then girls are looking more for status. And I think this is not something that like many people would probably freak out when they hear it, but it's based on like a lot of social psychology studies.
Yeah, but if you also look at couples out there, you'll find that not all of them.
Yeah, sure, not all. Like
so
it's just like the majority. It's of course it's like there are different there are exceptions as always, but I think that it's what I wanted to say is that there are still biological factors that we like. Of course there is society that is shaping us, but then there's also biology. I think both comes together, right? And yeah, I think also women judge men according to biology. Like, look at how many, for instance, when I was dating, like, I would, for instance, say, for instance, some girls would ask me, like, how tall are you? Right? So I was like, okay, I'm like not that tall. I'm like 176 or 77. Okay, then we cannot meet also. Right? So I take it with a grain of salt, but it's like it's impossible to tell me that women are not judging men according to appearance or to like maybe like this image like a guy has to be taller than them or stronger or so, like some do it, some don't, but I think that is still like biological factors still play a part.
Yeah, I think in terms of like initial attraction,
Initially, yeah.
definitely. But when it comes to relationships, that stuff goes out the window.
Yeah, but how would you have a relationship when you don't have the opportunity to get to know somebody? So that is the first step, and then you go into the relationship. If you don't get into the first step, and somebody say, "Okay, I'm not going to meet you because you're too short for me," then their natural selection already tells me, okay, there is a biological factor that some, not all, women are still like taking care of, even when they are like 20 or so.
Yeah. But I feel like people who are concerned about height aren't really looking for relationships.
Yeah, it's so like it's so backwards. Like,
yeah, I don't know.
But it's I just wanted to tell this story because I
know it happens a lot.
It happens a lot. But I just cannot.
Really stupid.
I just don't buy the argument that women are not judging according to like biological.
No, we definitely judge by biological factors.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like why it's just like a fact. Both.
Yeah, but like if I came across a like more stereotypical masculine man, I wouldn't be like, sorry, Tobias, I'm gonna go check out this guy.
Yeah.
Like that's not how it works.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah, initial attraction, sure, biology plays into it, like it has to. Otherwise, I don't know, but.
Yeah, I find it just interesting because I also from different, when you compare to different backgrounds, I think it's also something that unites us. It's not like so bad, like when you say, okay, there is stuff that men and women are like focusing more on, whether it's like physical appearances or like social status or humor. Like I think humor now in our generation it's also a big thing, or it's social status through like social media, like your pictures and how you present yourself, right? But there's also a status, right? If somebody has like 10k followers and then you have more, you will probably have more likes or more chances because you have got it's just like the number is there. So yeah, I think it's the way that also they quantify now stuff very different to the past, but it connects to how we are wired, our brains maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. The whole like things of like popularity on social media is just like I don't really care about that stuff. I think for me it's just like, of course it'll give me an indicator as to like what people think of them, but I don't go, wow, that person has this many likes, because I don't even keep track of that stuff.
Yeah, that's cool. I think I catch myself often looking at like, for instance, like a YouTube video or how much like likes are there, but it's just like so stupid because it doesn't tell anything about the content.
Yeah, exactly.
But on the other side, if there are so many likes, the probability is there that there is something that a lot of people are interested in.
Yeah, that's what it brings to me. Like if I see that there's a lot of likes or something on a video, then it just means, or a lot of views, it just means that, okay, a lot of people find this interesting. So then it's a bit more worth watching. I think like for me, it just tells me what the quality of the video will be, because often but I don't know, sometimes I do find really good videos that don't have that many views or likes or anything.
Yeah. But going with the masculinity, now we have all the concept, different ideas. It's all very fuzzy still. Mm-hmm. But now also like like the masculinity through social media, I find a very interesting topic, because how men now are presenting yourself is like also, it is in a way the same. But then it's also like they do stuff that they were not doing before, like being very much about their looks, and but that might be a different topic for like we should do one on like social media strategies and stuff like that. That would be cool or interesting.
Dating or whatever.
Dating would be cool.
Yeah, I'm getting tired. Maybe we can call it a day.
We call it a day. That was really cool, very interesting. I think I talked a bit more, but I
You were more passionate about this one, and
Yeah,
I think
the
sometimes I
topic
talk
is-
too much.
yeah, the topic is just fascinating and it's just like so controversial. But
Yeah.
I think we found a cool way to just talk about it so you guys can make up your own mind and maybe find something interesting.
Yeah, and I think especially because it has impacted you in the way that you've grown up so much, whereas for me, like I don't know. I think well from in terms of like the stereotypical man or woman, like I think growing up as a girl, I felt like I had more masculine energy to kind of like start off with. Like I wasn't your typical girly girl, so maybe growing up in a family that kind of was fine with the fact that I wasn't a girly girl, maybe changed the way that how my brothers were raised and how there wasn't really this expectation for them to be masculine or whatever.
Question would be how your parents would have reacted if your brothers were like wearing skirts or so.
I don't know. We can ask them in August.
Okay, then we have enough food for thought and for more episodes probably. And
Yeah, if you like this episode, let us know. And if you didn't like it, also let us know.
yeah, just write something. It's on YouTube, Twitter, Anchor,
Yep,
Google Podcast,
the Genius
Subscribe.
Podcast.
Genius Podcast.
Like and subscribe. Smash that like button.
Yeah, just smash it.
All right, bye.
Bye bye.